Hey guys, Matt here with A1amps.com, and in this video we're just going to have a little bit of fun. I set up this stereo wet-dry rig with my pedal board and these two Matchless amps. We've got a Matchless Lightning 15 with reverb and a Matchless Nighthawk 15 with no reverb. However, we're going to run a reverb pedal into that one and get a really awesome sound. Other than the amps, the pedal board is set up in a kind of hybrid wet-dry stereo way. Some of the pedals are running stereo, some are wet-dry. It's really cool. I'll show that in a second, and it's a super simple setup. Other than that, these amps are very complementary to one another. When you run a stereo or wet-dry rig, you want matching amps. Amps that are going to sound good together. You don't want a high-gain amp and a clean amp, because when you run pedals into the front of both of them at the same time, they're going to react differently to those pedals, and it might just sound like a mess if the amps don't match well. So these amps work really well. You'll hear that in a second. And right now, let's take a look at the pedal board. All right, so with the pedal board, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty standard board. There's not much to it. We go right into the whammy, into the polytune, then into all my drives and things. So we've got a compressor, Earthquaker, bit commander, synth pedal, overdrive from Earthquaker, fuzz from Adventure Audio, and then we go into the Infinite Jets because it also has a drive and some other just bass sounds. I use, drives are kind of like the bass sound, then you affect it with modulations, delays, reverbs. This kind of does the same thing. So all of these are going to both amps, as well as the whammy. After that, it gets a little bit more interesting. Then we go into the Strymon Deco. This is a stereo pedal, along with the digital delay here, DD6 from Boss. These are the only two stereo pedals. And like I said, this is a pretty straightforward setup here. There's no complicated switchers or AB boxes or anything. It's just all pedals, and we do all the splitting between these two stereo pedals. So after the drives, it goes into the Deco, which is like a chorus, tape machine, flanger, saturation, preamp type of thing. It does all sorts of things, some delay as well. But this also does a really nice job at a stereo widening effect, which is really cool. In the secondary functions, you can set that up. But the one output from the Deco goes straight into the DD6 and out to the amp. So one channel is just drives, Infinite Jets, Deco, delay, out. So these two are running in stereo. The other channel, this is where the wet-dry comes in. The other output, so the left or the right, I don't know which way I have it set up. The other output goes to the other time-based effects and modulations. So it goes drives, Deco, and then out to the other effects, which are the Explorer phaser from Spaceman. Then we go into the Randy's Revenge, Ring Mod, and Tremolo. delay from Hungry Robot, the Carmen line, Afterneath, Meteor, reverb, and then back to the DD6 and out to an amp. So all of these effects are going to the other amp, along with the drives. You can have a chorus go into both amps, which is awesome because it splits it nice and wide. It sounds immense. But you can also have a delay go into one amp that lets you keep the other amp nice and clear. You can get some really crazy stuff. Tremolo on one amp where the other one stays clean is incredible. Having a huge pad reverb is incredible on a single amp where you're staying nice and clear in the other. Phaser set with a high mix on one amp, awesome. And then we have this very digital lo-fi reverb going to the Nighthawk. The Lightning already has a reverb built in, spring, tube-driven spring reverb. But this reverb gets nice and dirty. It's got a nice pre-delay on it, and that's going to the dry Nighthawk. So with all of this together, you can get some really awesome stereo and wet-dry sounds. So let's take a look at some of those. All right, so before we get into this and start messing around with any effects, let's take a look at the amps by themselves. So here is the Matchless Lightning. All right, and now here's the Nighthawk by itself, just panned right down the middle. Okay, now both amps on at the same time. For the rest of this video, the Matchless Lightning is going to be panned to the left, hard left, and the Nighthawk is going to be panned hard right. Alright, so before we jump into any crazy stereo or wet dry stuff, let's just see how both of these amps sound with some drive into the front of them. so now I'm just going to add a little bit of reverb to both amps. First we'll start out with the Lightning with its built-in tube-driven spring reverb, and then I'll add reverb to the Nighthawk. And you'll hear the Lightning first in the left ear, and then when I add the Nighthawk's reverb, you'll hear that. This one's getting its reverb from the Caroline Meteor, which is a really nice digital reverb. It's got some lo-fi stuff and a really nice pre-delay, so it'll separate itself nicely from the Lightning's reverb. Now, both of these amps do come with the option of reverb. Obviously, this one has it, and the Nighthawk does not, but if you were to custom order one, you can get either amp with or without. So let's check them out. Okay, now let's get into some stereo effects. We're going to take a look at the Strymon Deco first. You'll see how much wider this pedal makes the sound as soon as I click it on. I've got it set up to do a chorus, so one amp is getting half of the chorus signal and the other is getting the modulated signal. And it has options in it to widen the sound even further in stereo rigs. And it's just a really great pedal for this. It's quickly become one of my favorite pedals. So let's hear that. Now we're going to take that same chorus sound we just had with the Deco and add a bit of delay to it. But the delay is in the wet-dry side of things, and it's only going to the Nighthawk. So it should be pretty cool. So as you just heard, having delay going to only 1 amp while the other stays relatively dry can be a really cool sound. You can have the repeats louder and longer and just have a big washy sound coming out of 1 amp, but then the other amp keeps things nice and clear. So you can hear whatever you're playing very well, but you can also hear the repeats well. Stereo setups are awesome for that. But let's check out some other effects. Now we're going to take a look at tremolo. Another effect that works really well with a wet-dry setup. Alright, so let's check out a few more effects. I'm going to turn on the phaser and the afterneath, and you can just hear how that sounds. Again, those are coming out of only the Nighthawk, and the lightning is staying nice and clean. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this video. This hasn't been the most detailed look at things, but hopefully it's given you some ideas to set up a very simple wet dry or stereo rig. As long as you've got 2 amps and 2 stereo pedals, you can kind of do this. You don't need any fancy switchers, no AB boxes, nothing. Just a bunch of patch cables, a bunch of pedals, and 2 amps. So if you'd like, be sure to like and subscribe. If you're interested in these amps, there's a link below in the description. Check them out on our website. We've got a bunch of pictures, more videos. Check out pricing, and all of our other amps. So thanks for watching. I've been Matt with a1amps.com, and I'll catch you next time.